Hello everybody, April 30th, 2021, Doc Hydro here. It's been a while, several months since I've last done a video, and I'm getting ready to go back to my day job here, and I just wanted to go over with some of the things that I'm looking at as a guy that is charged 99% of my job is charged with delivering water, whether it be to engines or helicopters at remote dip sites or even the occasional remote seat base, which I've done. And what you're looking at is what I've been working on since 2018, which is why you see the date there. That's my paper that I've kind of like put out there on my website and whatnot. And it talks about how to use the Fire Nomograms, which goes back to the 70s with Richard Rothermel. And I believe it's extremely important that we should probably take a renewed, a fresh visit to these things and learn how to use them a little bit differently. I won't say more efficiently, although that is the ultimate end goal for me in terms of our resources, whether it be ground or aviation resources. But let me explain a little bit of what this is here. So, because I've got a little preface, I'm just going to read a little bit here. As I say, fire behavior nomograms or predictive models have existed for a little over 50 years, providing valuable information to fire operations and planning personnel so they can better plan, prepare, and stage resources during an active fire based upon nomogram outputs. However, some of the information in the nomograms are cumbersome or of little practical use to the average single resource or firefighter on the ground without extensive classroom instruction or practice. I'm not saying that they're non-usable. I'm saying to your average individual that is just coming in to being an engineer or a new captain, they may not have the training or initially the desire, the interest to be looking so far out ahead at the nomogram. So that's why I put that there. So realistically, it is pretty much of little use right now. And so that's why that statement's there. So nobody attack the messenger here. The information that is often of little practical use is the heat per unit area in BTU per square foot. Typically, the fire's rate of spread is given in chains per hour, yet to be more useful to operational personnel in the field, some rearranging of the figures to feet per second is necessary. And also the nomograms show a BTU per foot per second. So the chains are given an hour, the BTUs in per foot per second, and then the heat will also be in BTU per square foot. So it can seem like you're working with, confusing because you're working with three different things, but my paper here shows you how to break that down fairly easily. Then I continue to say to be more useful to a person on the field, rearranging the numbers to BTU per foot per second is necessary, and it can make the nomograms a lot more useful in being able to determine the right amount and type of air resources based upon heat per unit area. Again, I say air resources, but you can use this for anything that's going to use water in the suppression activity of a fire. This conceptual document attempts to explain this concept and how to use the existing resources to achieve the maximum cooling effect so that ground resources such as crews, engines, and dozers can move in closer for more efficient suppression efforts. Now, I go on further to state that because the reason it's important is because it's the BTU being generated that keeps almost all of that at bay to begin with. So then if you move on to the second page, and I've got fuel model 4, chaparral 6 foot, and then I start off with this model. And this model was just selected arbitrarily to illustrate a point. That once we establish what our fire is doing, which again, remember, is not pinpoint accuracy, it's an estimation based upon experience and what we're seeing on the ground and the fuel continuity and loading. You take all of that in, including slope, like in this case 60%, 20-foot wind speed 15 miles an hour, the effective mid-flame wind speed is at 16, dead fuel moisture is at 3%, live is at 120. The nomogram outputs are red, which is all this stuff down here, and blue up here means that that's the color used. And if you go through C.J. Johnson's class in the Wildfire Learning Portal and look at all that, and then there's Faith, and I can't remember the girl's last name, but very knowledgeable individuals are on the Wildfire Learning Portal. this is their methodology, so I've just adopted that. So you get a rate of spread of 380 chains an hour, which breaks down to around 7 feet per second. This will give you a heat per unit area of 2,866 BTU per square foot. Now, you wouldn't normally do that. You would round it to 28 or 29 or maybe 2850, but to go the way that I did, that's just my own quirk. You don't have to do that. The BTU per foot per second equals the heat per unit area times the rate of spread in feet per second equals 2866 times 7 feet per second equals 19,600 or 19,976 BTU per foot per second. So how they're getting this number right here is they're taking this number and multiplying it by this. So it's 1 foot times 7 feet in a length equals that 19,976 BTU per foot per second. So it's actually 7 feet in a second is what this model is showing here. So the range that you would use is between 2,800 times 7 feet per second to 2,900 BTU times 7 feet per second, which gives you this range. That's how I've got it. So then moving on. So now how would you actually use this? So in my envisioning of all things water, I've always looked at it, well, fire produces BTU, water absorbs BTU. If you can get them to match, you can get suppression, effective suppression. So the next logical step in determining the selection of the appropriate number and type of air resource for this discussion is based upon 3 main factors with several sub-factors interwoven, which, you know, I have the first, the second, and the third. The first being obtaining the outputs, the second is estimating the dimensions of your fire, and the third is determining the number and type of aircraft, okay? So I'm not going to go through all this here, but on the next page, I start breaking down the math. If you work out how much area in square feet your fire is, okay, and then you get that area, multiply it by your heat per unit area, BTU per square foot, it will give you the BTU generation of the fire. Well, then if you take that and divide it by the thermal capacity per pound of water, which is what you're seeing here, it will give you the amount of pounds of water. And the reason for that is, as I show there, is that we're using with the thermal capacity in BTU of a fire divided by the thermal capacity in BTUs per pound of water. Gives you the amount of pounds of water. Divide that by 8.34 pounds per gallon, you get the number of gallons required. And then you can work the math back to determine what that is. So that tells you what that is. But also, in moving down, you can see that if you work it the other way, so if you get 11,310 gallons is what you calc out, well, what's that going to be? Well, if I've got, 3,000 gallon capacity tanker sitting at an air base, I divide the two numbers. I divide the gallons required by the gallon capacity carried aboard an airplane. It'll tell me the number of loads or planes for a single load that I need, in this case, 4. So this tells you what you need for knockdown. It does not tell you how to get 100% extinguishment. You're never going to get this method. And if you're thinking so, well, then you're going to be sadly disappointed. And I even say that way in here. If you have all this, you can determine the effective run length of an aircraft, and I show that here as well. So if you have the aircraft BTU absorption capability, which is 28,100,000 BTUs, this assumes just water, and divide it by the fire heat per unit area, okay, HPA, you'll get 9,804 square feet. So now you have to take that number and divide it by what your initial rate of spread in feet per second was, which was 7, which gives you this run length right here. If you take that run length and say, well, it's rough terrain, so I might only be 60-70% efficient, which I use an efficiency factor down here, it will recalculate the total length of the run as maybe less than 1,000 feet. So then you start dividing your, let's say, mile-long active fire line by that 980 effective run length, and it will tell you how many aircraft you had to have stacked up sequentially to lay one drop after another. Think of this concept, folks, as the difference between your standard load and return 1 aircraft at a time or 2 aircraft at a time, and then nothing in between. Well, that nothing in between allows the fire time to have radiant nearby heat, infrared energy to reignite the cooled off fuel, and then it starts up all over again. So you're really not gaining anything. Not only that, your effective gallons per minute equivalent, as it would translate to thermal capacity of water, diminishes greatly. I want to say exponentially, but I haven't worked the math out that far to determine that. I don't think it's quite that, but it's quite a bit. So that's what this is. This whole document tells you the number of aircraft, but then down here I show the model of the nomogram of what I'm using and how you derive it. And then down here I show you that you've got the aircraft type and then the gallon capacity total and then the BTU capacity if it's all water. And I even state down here, well, in my QREF I state that it's based upon a 5,000 foot altitude and 50 degrees water temperature, because those two factors affect the heat absorption capacity of water. And the 747 has ceased operation, so it's no longer there. And the DC-10, these capacities are diminished. So why would I be talking about this now after being silent for a couple of months? Let's go and look at this. This is the Drought Monitor. This is April 27th, just 3 days ago of this year. So all of this is in extreme drought down here. We're in severe and then moderate, and it's only going to continue to get worse. So with this down the way that it is, the 747 is gone. Aircraft capacities are diminished. If we get the winds, which I'm expecting from solar radiation and solar wind speeds affecting our atmosphere, and straight line winds becoming more intense due to the Earth's extreme heating and cooling, we may end up with more aircraft being grounded due to atmospheric conditions than what we're used to. So keep that in mind. If that's the case, then you're going to want to know how to take maximum advantage of the thermal capacity of water. Also, another thing that I've got is the Wildland Master Engineer's Test. Covers 9 separate scenarios. There's 73 questions. So there's 3 simple hose lays, 3 progressive hose lays. There's a remote helicopter dip site, and there is a relay pumping operation that has another operation within inside of that one. So all of those combined, if you can get through that, then you will be able to go back to the Fire Nomograms and easily calculate and figure out what you need with all of this stuff. So the document's up on my website, wildfireengineer.com. That's about all I'm going to say right now. I'll be in touch when opportunity presents itself. And as normal, you guys know how to get a hold of me. Hydro@wildfireengineer.com. Be safe out there this year. Bye-bye.